All right, how we doing, everybody? It's Chase. Welcome you back to my videos where we do simple and straightforward analysis. We're going to get right into it like we usually do. Okay, Bitcoin. Let's zoom all the way out. You know how I like to do. We like to start zoomed out. We get the overall general picture, and then we're going to zoom in and we'll start looking for our trade setups, where our executions will take place, etc., etc. Okay, so not complicated here, right? Let's just take a little box. Let's mark out what our resistance was before we broke upwards. Okay, so this is my area of either bearish or bullish invalidation. And I'm drawing this out a little differently than I sometimes do for you guys, just because I feel like I've drawn it out the same week, or the same week after week after week. So this level remains the same. I'm just showing you a different way to look at it, okay? Weekly resistance, 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 resistance. Look at all these rejections. Look at these rejections right here. Major push through. When you get a strong push through like that, people had sold this expecting this to be resistance again. They thought it was resistance here, or it was resistance here. It was resistance here. So they're thinking, well, it's going to be resistance again. So they either sell here, whether they're selling spot or whether they're shorting, etc., etc. If you were to get a retest of this level, then it would serve as support because they had previously sold. They're looking to buy back, fearing that they're going to miss the move of it going higher. Okay, simple concept that I often talk about, easy enough. So this is the level right here of essentially we're bullish above and we're bearish below, in my opinion. Okay, so until this level is broken, we stay mostly bullish. Doesn't mean we can't play short scenarios on the lower time frame, but if we're talking about this high time frame, this weekly, this daily, we're looking ultimately for longs on a retrace. Okay, moving forward, where are some potential targets? Well, let's move down to the daily here, and we're just going to mark out the daily. We had this daily close right here. I had posted this on Twitter. People were asking me, where'd you get your level from? And I just said, I took the highest daily closes essentially, or the lowest daily closes, sort of the highest the lowest before we broke down. Okay, apologies. So the lowest daily closes before we broke down. You also see some acceleration in here, right? So you had your sort of final, you had your support, sort of your final support here, and then look at this candle and this candle. This is really like your impulse move, your acceleration, so it sort of began once this support level had failed. Okay, and we saw a clean rejection off that. Good, great. So what in the meantime, right? Well, at that point, I would say, where's liquidity? Okay, I'm just going through the thought process of how I break this down. Thinking, okay, well, if I want it, well, first off, let's also talk about, where it could go right to the upside. The next target I would see is if we were to break this, I would want to see this liquidity taken. In my opinion, what we see above here is we would see a push above. This is where tons of people get stopped out, right? Anyone who had shorted in here, they have their stops above here, okay? And just imagine how everyone would be cheering for a breakout and calling for new all-time highs. And your smart money here is getting their, the limit asks filled with everyone's stops and people market buying into them. That's your deviation, and back down we go, okay? I think that's also a possible trade to watch inside of here, is to watch, let's draw it closer, watch for some type of deviation into here, a reclaim, that could be your entry point right there, stop above the high, okay, and you play it back. Now, people are going to say, oh, well, where do you play it back to? Well, do you play it back to, the major SR level, or do you play it back to liquidity? Well, and that's when we have to, adapt to what the market provides us, and this is sort of the next step in the logic that a lot of people, I think, aren't really catching on to yet, is that your target and your entry depends on what the market still has available. Okay, so if this swing level gets ran and we come up, or this liquidity here, and we come up and we do the deviation and we come back in, then the target is no longer the liquidity, right? But the target's lower. It's not the liquidity anymore, the target's lower. But if the liquidity is still available, if we go up from here and we close into here and it just turns out to be a deviation, right? Then the target is the liquidity. The target is not the SR level because the liquidity level is still available, okay? So that's sort of like, you know, I'm not pretending it's really anything special to me, but that's sort of like next level thinking, in my opinion, to a beginner or an intermediate. In terms of target choice and entry choice, you have to see what SRs have been used, what liquidity has been taken. Things of that nature is going to direct you as to where you should be looking for entries, where you should be looking for take profits, etc. Let's take a sip of water. Okay, so in general, let's just give it my overall thoughts here. We'll wrap up Bitcoin, we'll move into ETH, we'll move into ES. Yeah, I don't really, you know, sometimes colored lines are okay. I don't have my lines colored at the moment. I prefer it like this because I think a lot of people, or you can generate, especially newcomers, you can generate a bias based off the colors of your lines, right? Like red is resistance, green is support. But if you keep them neutral, every time you're interacting with a level, you're going to think about, well, what's actually happening at this level? Is it serving as resistance? Is it flipping to support? That's another play, right? If we get closes in here and you find the support off of it, well, then you can play level to level, scalp longs, you know, play up into here, play into this liquidity area here. Again, the one thing I am pretty confident about would that be above here would be a bit of a deviation before back down. I find it hard to believe that we would push much higher than that. I feel like that would be the ultimate squeeze, the ultimate trap in this area, in my opinion. So I'll be watching for that for sure. Yeah, so that's the plays for around here, right? You have sweep of liquidity. And if you want to talk confluence, let's break down to even a lower time frame here. Let's look at some of the confluence of this. So where did this leg up begin, right? So you have a high, you have a low. You have a new high put in here, and this is your next low. Okay, so that's how you spot your leg. So you have your leg there, and we're looking for longs. If we're looking for longs, we know how it goes. Your 1 goes on the bottom, your 0 goes on the top. Just some basic stuff here, right? Basic fib stuff. And look at the confluence that we're seeing here. So we're having liquidity below here. We're having the equilibrium. We're having previous SR from here, right? Look at that. And just mark this out real quick. I know I said we're not going to use colors, but I don't want to put too many, you know, lines and whatnot on top of each other here. So look at this, right? The potential of a retest, liquidity, 618, equilibrium. There's a lot around here that I would be interested in. Okay, so this is definitely an area of interest for me. If we do happen to push into here, that should be a buy for me, and we'll see. You know, again, target-wise, it depends what's left, okay? If we keep making highs here, right? And now we're going to get deep, right? If we keep making highs here and doing weird shit like this, right? And we leave liquidity left, we just keep leaving liquidity behind, then that means to me that this level, if serves as support, is going to do a fast sweep of all of that liquidity built up, okay? If it's a quick move down, let's erase all this. Now, if it's a quick move down, on the other hand, well, I'll probably take some profit here, TP1. I'll probably take some more profit here, TP2. And then at that point, I'll be like, you know, I'll have 50% of the position closed or something. If my stop was somewhere in here, because again, if the premise of your trade is the 618, the previous SR, the liquidity, you're wrong if it gets into here, right? You're not because if you're thinking it's going into here, then you're longing up here and your stop's down here, right? If you're trading based off of this area, then you know your stop has to be, you put it somewhere safe, you know, leave a little room for overshoot, but the stop shouldn't be too far away. Okay, so those are two different trades. Keep that in mind too. That's something. A lot of people think that, you know, I mean, I'd rather take two separate trades, right? Rather than entering here with a stop down here, I'd rather just enter here, get stopped, you know, watch price action in here a little bit, If it flips a little bit something, okay, I get long again, stop below here, and now I'm in from this area, right? So they're two separate trades. But again, if this was TP1 and this was TP2 and my stop was down here, well, I'm like break even already, right? So from here to here, and from entry around here, and from here to here, that's about the same distance, right? So that's basically you'll get a break even, or if worst case scenario, you lose like 0.25 R or something. And that's how you can mitigate your loss in these trades, is by taking your partial TPs and then let the other 50% run. You could trail a stop if things look clean. Again, if you have a ton of built up liquidity, you don't necessarily want to trail a stop under all of it. You're probably just better off, you know, just trailing it sort of close. And if you get taken out, you get taken out. It's not a huge deal. What I just said right there can be interpreted in a few different ways. So that's a tough one. Let's retrace. I didn't fully mean what I said because I don't think people should be. I'm trying to think how I relay this. If time is going by and stops are building up, you don't want to have a deep stop that's below all the liquidity. But if price is moving up quickly, you also don't want to be in an area of flash crash potential, right? So don't put your stop too close because you could get flash crashed, right? This isn't really a flash crash, but like that's a decent wick right there during this uptrend. So if the uptrend is quick, don't get flash crashed. But if the uptrend is slow and it's stalling, watch out for a sweep of liquidity. Okay. So you wouldn't want to leave your stop too far out then. I think that better explains it a bit. Yeah, so that's mostly Bitcoin, right? You have a major SR here. If we do happen to get down here again, we're still bull. Into here, we're still bullish. Resistance, 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 resistance. Should flip to support. If it doesn't, we're bearish again. Coming down to the 618. This is another potential trade, and I'm just ripping through the potential trades here. Liquidity here, 618, a lot of confluence in there. We watch for that. We watch for the break above, deviation, retest. And again, I know some people will say, oh, well, you never get a perfect retest. I know you don't always get a perfect retest, or a lot of the times you don't get a perfect retest. So let's pretend, let's just draw it like this. Price breaks out. It dumps through hard. Oftentimes, now Bitcoin can, do the Dalai Lama as well. We've seen it. But if you think that's the top, if you think that's a deviation, getting a board in one of these spots, whether it's here or whether it's here, is fine. You could have half your position here, half your position here, stop loss up there, and that's how you play that back down. Okay? That is even more likely if this liquidity is still left. Okay? Again, if the liquidity is tapped, well, we might just be moving up. It might just flip to support, and we might have to play level longs. That's fine. But if the liquidity is left behind, then it might be a bit of a deviation, come back in, and then we take the liquidity, and then maybe that's when we go for a bigger move, okay? So a lot of this is subject to change and, what the market's going to provide. But yeah, hopefully some of this depth relates to you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments, as always. If you like sort of the more in-depth stuff, let me know. If you just prefer it to be quicker paced, let me know. And as always, like and retweet the tweet. Very helpful. Shout out to PrimeXBT for sponsoring. Go and sign up and deposit on there. Links are at the bottom. That keeps these videos coming for free. Okay? All right, moving on to ETH. We're going to keep the concepts fairly similar, but we're not going to go as in-depth on ETH, right? We're on the weekly chart. Again, we're zoomed out. Let's keep it clean. If you're having trouble marking up a chart, you can often just go to a weekly or go to a daily, find some candle closes, and just use them as a starting point. In this case, it would have served you perfectly. Okay, look at that. And it won't always be like this, right? But let me tell you why it served you perfectly. So I took these closes from the weekly, right? Look at the resistance here. Look at this resistance. Look at this. Okay, all perfect, right? Look at this resistance over here. Okay, anyone can spot, support and resistance and cleanliness of the lines. That's great. But what confirms this level to me is this origin of breakdown here. Before this broke down, it tapped this level one more time. Big breakdown, pushes through. A retest of 1680 area should serve as support. Okay? When you break down, what do you see? You see, I believe they call this your order block. You know, I sort of just say SR and whatnot, but right in the equilibrium of it, right? So you can mark this out and say, well, resistance here, all this resistance here, and the consolidation in here pushed us up. Look at the support from the top of the block right here, right? So you pushed through here. This was your resistance before your move up. Again, you can look at it many different ways. Resistance before the move up, aka people sold here. And as it came back down, look what they did. They got out at break even, break even, break even. So they're getting out, or they're rebuying to get back in thinking it's going higher. Typically on the first candle is where people take their break even, right? And that's why you get a little bit of even a front run there. So this dumps, people are like, oh, I'm almost out for break even. They buy that up. They buy that up quick because they want to get out as fast as possible because they're worried that it's going higher. They were underwater for 1, 2, 3. I'm taking that break even on the 4th day. Get me out. They even front run it, right? You get a pump. You get a rejection from resistance. You come back down. And this is when people probably start buying more. They're thinking it's going up. Play it how you see it, right? But long story short, this is bullish as long as this level holds. Back below, you know, we'll have to watch. I could entertain a sweep of liquidity here. I could entertain it, but we have to be careful because you got to think you'd have a big deviation above here. A lot of people underwater if this was to nuke through. You know, so maybe you get a bit of a sweep here. You take your profit here, and then I think it's probably just lower from there. And, you know, maybe something into here of that nature, right? And where do we see confluence? This low. Liquidity, boom, something of that nature. Okay? On the upside, you know, and we're just marking out scenarios here, right? On the upside, what do we see? I mean, you could say liquidity here. You could say resistance here. On any given day, you know, different plays can happen, or, you know, different scenarios can happen. But most of the time, I would just take profit right into this resistance right here, right? That's your take profit. You don't necessarily need to wait for the liquidity. If it was ES, right? If it's ES, S&P, we probably play the liquidity most likely, because we know it just seeks liquidity much more, in my opinion, than crypto does. But for crypto, we just take profit at the resistance. Keep it simple, easy. Okay. As far as ETH goes, just moving back into the high time frame. Let's just mark it out. Let's take a look. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this should provide a bounce. You'll see a wick through it or something, just like you see wicks through it here. Wick through, wick through, wick through, wick through. But ultimately, you get a response. So maybe we wick through a little bit into the low 16s. You get a response. You play it into the next resistance. You could even use these closes, confluent with this liquidity. You get a tap in. You get a tap into here, a little wick through. You look for the reclaim right there. There's your trade. Okay. Again, it's all like the same shit, guys. There's a couple. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's millions of ways to enter your trades and whatnot, but my tactics are often quite similar. It's like 3 or 4 major things that I look for: sweeps, market structure breaks, retests, and it's a game of probabilities. All right, don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. And when it comes down to it, utilize your daily time frame. The daily time frame is your friend. A lot of the big money and big eyes are looking at the daily time frame. Okay, so that's where your eyes want to be at the start of the day. Always build your bias from there. Not bias as in emotions, but bias as in trading bias, whether you're looking to position yourself long or short. If the daily looks bullish, I'm positioning swing longs. I'm okay with scalp shorts, but they're not my main focus, etc. Okay? Moving into ES. You know, we'll just go about it pretty quick. range high, range low. I've been talking about this for a while. Sweep of the range high here, okay? Sweep of the range high. I ultimately think we should still be getting down to this liquidity, which would mean that this leg we should be hunting shorts. We fib it out. Say, okay, we got the 618 here. We haven't tagged it yet. Closing above the 618 would make me reconsider this idea and think that we could potentially be going higher. That's sort of my invalidation, would be closing above the 618. Let's get this stuff out of the way. Sharpen this up. We move down to a daily time frame. Here's what we can see on the daily, because we're looking for more information, looking for where our entry could possibly be. Resistance here before we move down. Okay, so this was we found support here, we pushed up, we found the final support before the move down. Okay, resistance confluent with the 618. What else do you see? You should be seeing it. Liquidity right there. Okay, so now we have, whoops. Now we have, let's go through all our confluence here. We have a range high, a range low, a sweep of the range high. Typically when you get a sweep of the range high, you move towards a sweep of the range low. That's one level of confluence. So we're now working within this leg with the objective of here. We fib it out, 618. Prior resistance. We're just racking up confluence here, right? So now we're looking for our entry technique at this point. We push up into here. We keep eye on the liquidity, okay? Two ways to play it, actually. And go watch the How to Enter a Trade 101. This is where that comes in, right? Two ways to trade it. Blind asks straight into the 618. It's okay, but sometimes, obviously, you're more prone to a stop out here. You typically get better risk reward in this scenario, right? Because you have an entry here with a stop here. And I wouldn't even put your stop above the high. I would either put it at equal highs, or I would put it at just a little bit below. Because what's going to happen is often when you don't want to really be trapped in the liquidity pool. Actually, in ES, it's not a big deal. There's so much liquidity in ES that even if you do get stopped out above a swing high, you're not going to get much slippage at all. So scrap that sort of for ES. That's more for crypto. But long story short, if it's going to push all the way up to here, it's probably going to take the high out anyway. But so you can just short the 618 blind. That's a possible trade. Or you let it sweep the liquidity and your eyes are now on liquidity. Okay, you don't care what it's doing in here. You don't care if it's going higher. Who gives a fuck? Then there's no trade and you didn't even get stopped. That's great. Doesn't matter. But if it works its way into here and it comes back down, well then you start looking for that retest wherever it may be. The retest may be here. The retest may be here. Let's draw it a little differently. Because we know price doesn't go up in a straight line usually. But, if it looks something like this and it dumps down, well, then your retest is probably right there. Boom, stop here. And then there's your trade to liquidity. Boom. Okay? So, two different ways to play that. All right? What else? That's my chair. If you ever had the Herman Miller and body chair, it makes, has that. It leans back far, man. It's a really nice chair. If you don't have a nice chair and you have the money, I can not recommend this chair enough, man. It's so comfortable. I've had it for a couple years. It's great. What else to talk about? I feel like, we could talk about CT as usual. CT's somewhat calm at the moment. I think it's just the consolidation. Everyone chilled out a bit from calling for new all-time highs every day. I still see people calling for higher than I believe, but that's part of trading, right? There's going to be some people who genuinely think stuff is going much higher, and there's going to be people who genuinely think stuff is going much lower, and there's going to be people in the middle. I'm someone in the middle at the moment. I'm certainly not a perma bear or a perma bull by any means. I do see the potential value in pushing into 33, 34K. I do see how the market could very much enjoy that liquidity. I don't think that we're bearish unless we get back below, 24 to 25. Preferably, you want to see more of the top of this hold. You don't want to see like a full-on test of it. But Bitcoin is weird like that. Sometimes it'll make you think it's weak. as long as we're not closing into here, right? Like if we're really below it and it just there's no response, this is probably your local top right here. But yeah, overall I'm content. I don't feel like there's anything too crazy at the moment. I think yeah, I think the chart has what you need at the moment. Let's put it that way. The chart has what you need. You don't really need CT too much right now outside of just interacting and shit posting and having fun with your favorite people or whatever. And that's about it. So yeah, as always, like the video, like and retweet on Twitter. Appreciate all you guys. Yeah, Deposit Prime XBT, shout out to them, sponsor. They've been my sponsor for like 3 years, man. So shout out to them. Big ups to them. All right, thank you everybody. You have a great week. Talk soon.